Well, I think before we jump into that, this might help illustrate a little bit of how we feel about LAFC. We got some champagne here to celebrate another absolutely incredible final fumble by LAFC, something that we track here often on the pod. So,
and we're back. We are now joined by some guests, some visitors from the Lobbing Scorchers, Seattle Sounders podcast. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, yeah. I'm Ari Lillianwall.
I'm Noah Reif. We are Lobbing Scorchers, Sounders podcast, a MLS podcast, a shithousery podcast, perhaps. That's all of the above.
This is our favorite type of podcast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lob you guys a compliment right away and just say that the kits that you're wearing, Darren and I are much underdressed. And the compliments will stop after this, but we do have to acknowledge that
yes, we're enemies. We're sworn enemies.
Both kids are top tier and already your top guests just by your choices of apparel and outfits.
Well, thank you. Up the goals. Shout out to Brighton, top of the Premier League, best team to ever exist. They've never been bad ever in their entire lifespan.
And I've got New Mexico United to represent my home state.
Yeah, so be nice to Ari because we're like brothers now. United and
exactly.
I mean, yeah, you do a Sounders podcast, but you're wearing the New Mexico jersey. That's all we care about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a gesture of goodwill.
LA is like geographical average, sort of.
Like that's true.
Places. I don't know.
That is true.
Look how early I'm stretching for things.
Yeah, you guys may not know this, but we are the walkable city discussion podcast of record for MLS. But usually it happens when we run out of things to talk about. Darren, we have plenty to talk about because there is a big game.
Cities.
Yeah,
because
I mean we're happy to talk about that too. Seattle's we live walkable to each other. We walk to pod.
Yeah.
Wow, this is like what a get for us.
Champion.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
I love it.
The best part about bringing that up and now hearing that you can walk to pod is that we could not live farther away from each other in the county of Los Angeles. Like it's astounding, but it makes complete sense when you think about what Los Angeles is in the greater context of the county. But Darren, we do have things to talk about. We'll get to the walkable cities when we run out of stuff.
Our teams will play each other shortly.
Yeah, in a game nobody cared about until Cucho scored a goal in the 90-plus minute on Sunday. Now we're all, if you're an LAFC fan, we're back in. U.S. Open Cup, the most important game of the season. We're playing the Sounders. We've done fairly well against them up until now. But I would say this. Ahead of, the 2022 season, the most important match in LAFC's history trounced by the Seattle Sounders. And yet since then, things have been a little different. I'm just curious, like straight from Sounders fans and straight from guys that really are close to the team, how do you feel about LAFC in this moment? Like just in a general, not going into the game per se, but just like, what is LAFC a bogey team or are we reading too much into that?
Well, I think before we jump into that, this might help illustrate a little bit of how we feel about LAFC. We got some champagne here to celebrate another absolutely incredible final fumble by LAFC, something that we track here often on the pod. So we will be popping this and sipping this.
Final fumbles in general or final fumbles specifically from LAFC?
Specifically from LAFC. Yeah, no, it's a thing.
Right.
I mean, while Noah gets this situated, I can take your question. I mean, speaking for us, like we're sick of LAFC. This is like the fourth time that these two teams have played this year. And like you mentioned, it's just gotten so one-sided. I mean, we looked up the exact record. It's like LAFC is 7-0-2 in the last 9 versus Seattle. And so it's like I think there was a while where it was legitimately starting to look like a really good Western Conference rivalry. And I always hold the 2019 Western Conference Championship up as like the greatest win in Seattle club history, because that was the year. I mean, LAFC was in the year that was the Carlos Vela MVP plus 48 goal differential or whatever year, and no one, myself included, thought Seattle was winning that game, and that was this great historic win. Seattle went on to win MLS Cup, and really, I mean, there was the COVID year where Seattle knocked them out of the playoffs, but pretty much since then, it's just been all LAFC, and especially these last 2 games and this year, really, like it's felt like the games have not only gone LAFC's ways, but like these last couple games haven't even been all that competitive. Denny Bwanga is an evil demon. He's spawned from the gates of hell. I hate watching that guy. I'm sick of him.
Yeah.
I never want to watch him play soccer again. But I mean, it's an incredible squad, right? And I mean, we're popping champagne jokingly about them choking a final, but that's because that's like with how one-sided it's been with Seattle. That's like all we have right
that's
now.
All we can hang our hat on. Yeah,
that's sort of where that comes from. It's not even like from a holding it over you guys. It's more just like the Schadenfreude is like what we have to hold on to.
Yeah, we became most known in the LAFC sphere for after the Champions Cup debacle, let's say, that we recorded an hour and 30-minute podcast just on that game, just to feel good about ourselves. So
you went minute by minute or what?
We just,
you went deep.
It was just like because so Seattle has two things in this whole kind of rivalry. Number one is the 2019 Western Conference Championship and the fact that Seattle has won Champions Cup and LAFC couldn't quite do it. So those are like I said, that's just kind of another thing that like when we think of things that we have to hold on to in this dynamic right now where LAFC wins all the games, those are the two things that I hold on to.
We respect them, but we hate them. And, we did bring up recently that it's starting to feel like the rivalry between LAFC and the Sounders is getting to a point where I'm like, all right, I might rate this rivalry over the Timbers rivalry just because LAFC is such a big it's just a globally recognized team, right? Like Portland plays in a baseball stadium, like no one cares about them. They have like Evander, who's like who even cares about that guy, And it's like we have to watch Denny Bwanga, a literal demon, play on this field, and just I weep every time he touches the field because he's too good at soccer.
Wow. Well, I feel like you put us into a trench of depression and then pulled us right out of it. That was really helpful.
That's what we're about.
With the champagne. And then now I feel like I'm drinking champagne. I don't even have it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad that we started in that place of like, you mentioned that you're sick of playing us. I feel like we've gotten into this weird situation with Seattle, Vancouver, maybe even Portland, where like we're at the point where we're like, okay, we're doing it again. Let's see if we can do it again. And it's something like we were so happy to have you guys on because it's just like, okay, like what is there that's new to this that we can bring to the situation?
Actually,
it's definitely helpful to hear
what
about,
is
like,
new? What is new? Like what?
Well,
we have a little bit of new stuff on our end too.
Yeah, well, I do think there's like a little bit of a different spin to this game and novelty to it, with it being an Open Cup game, but also at Starfire. This is what we were just talking about on our show.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I don't think LAFC has ever played at Starfire.
No,
and it is a whole different animal than games at like a big stadium or at Lumen Field because the dimension, it's a very narrow pitch. It's like the pace of play is incredibly fast because of how like unique the dimensions are. And the environment is very crazy because it's 5,000 person venue. They pack for every Open Cup game, they pack it to the brim. It's incredibly loud and the fans are right on top of the field. Whereas at Lumen, it's this vast like expanse where the fans, there's kind of the separation between what's going on in the field and the fans in the stands. Starfire, they're right. The fans are right on top of you, like all of the heckling and the insults that they're hurling out at like the goalkeepers and the players on the field. You can hear them on the field, and it really it affects a visiting team's tactics quite a lot because we were just talking about this, but like any notion of playing conservatively or defensively is much more difficult because of how fast the pace of play is. So it's just like it's a variable that creates like an entirely different game than you would normally see on like a normal size pitch. And like I said, like it's going to be a really crazy, rowdy environment. So I think like Seattle's all-time record in Open Cup games at Starfire is they've only lost twice all time at Starfire in the Open Cup. One was the game against the Timbers where Clint Dempsey famously got ejected for tearing up the referee's notebook, and Seattle actually finished that game with 7 guys on the pitch because there was like an injury and a bunch of red cards. So there was that one. And then like last year, I think the Quakes won in PKs. Other than that, Seattle's never lost an Open Cup game at this building, and they've played like 30 games there. So like as much as LAFC has the upper hand in terms of like talent differential and like the quality of Denny Bouanga and Bogus and Giroud, if he plays, I doubt he's going to play, but like I think like if there's one thing that we're kind of hoping for from a Seattle perspective, it's that the Starfire variable will affect LAFC's game plan and their execution during the game enough where it turns what should be a game where LAFC is pretty heavily favored into just a 50-50 toss-up.
Yeah, and it's, the big thing is we kind of know the LAFC mindset a little bit. We've watched them play about 150 billion times against the Sounders. It's,
just this season.
Just this season. We played 400 times this season. It's crazy. Yeah. And, that tanking, that like, we'll wait you out, we'll let you have possession. At Starfire, it's just too much of an onslaught to do that. You've got to hold some possession to be successful there. And if you score, it doesn't really matter. There's going to be other chances to come back, no matter the quality of the team on the other side.
It'll be entertaining. That I can pretty much guarantee. I've never seen an Open Cup game at Starfire that didn't have my adrenaline going. And I think like with that dynamic between these two teams right now, that's probably going to be accentuated, because the other thing I'll tell you guys is that like this is such a golden opportunity for Seattle to like kind of kick LAFC while they're down a little bit, like coming off this emotional Leagues Cup loss, short turnaround. Seattle, I guarantee you the players, and I know for a fact all the fans are sick of how these fixtures have been going. And like the fans and I guarantee the players are definitely like relishing the chance to like twist the knife a little bit.
I was not aware of how intense that change in venue is going to be. That's really exciting and terrifying. I'll say we usually do dread going up to Seattle anyway for the turf alone.
This is worse. This is like
worse turf. Good. Like, thank you. Great.
I
like
played
Portland
there when
level?
I was a kid. Oh, worse.
Oh, really?
Worse.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
It's like you can see the ridges.
Yeah.
Oh.
Great.
It's like
ridges in this case not good. Not like
professional
Ruffles.
game on this. Arguably no.
Yeah, 100%.
So that sounds like US Open Cup. Yeah, that sounds great.
Exactly.
As it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
So venue aside, and the advantages, disadvantages, that are we going to see anything different from Seattle? Because lately the talk has been, well, the player, the should be the best player on your team, just can't get on the field. Can't stay healthy. Are we going to see pretty much the same? Like, is Brian going to roll out the same team and be like, guys, there's no way they can beat you guys again. Like, let's make this happen. Or do you foresee them playing in a different way, not just because of the conditions and the dimensions of the field?
I think it's going to be a pretty strong lineup. I don't know. Like Schmetz has been running out pretty much the same lineup every game in Leagues Cup and in this last game against Minnesota on Saturday. It is like a pretty tight turnaround. So that might affect, like, there might be a little bit of rotation. But I certainly think like, I know Schmetz really wants to win this game, and I think there's like enough of a rest here where like certain guys, like I think Jordan Morris probably starts. I think Rusnak probably starts. And really in this last resurgent run of games that Seattle has had against everyone besides LAFC, where they've been playing more like a 2 points per game pace over the last couple months, the Morris and Rusnak duo has been very effective and very productive. I think they're probably he's probably going to run them out there for this game. And then you might see a little bit of rotation on the back line. Like the starting CBs are usually Yamar and Jackson Reagan. You might see like a John Bell in this game, who's been a pretty effective like third CB. And you might see maybe a younger guy at right back, but I think Nuhu, who's Seattle's best defender, or at least 1v1 defender, I think he'll start. So I think it's going to be pretty much first choice, except for maybe one or two changes. But I really think Seattle is going to be going for it in this game. I don't know. Do you see it different?
No, I think it's going to be the same. We're going to be I think it's really going to come down to Paul Rothrock, one of our fan favorites here. He is a absolute Open Cup merchant. The only thing that he likes more than scoring in the Open Cup is looking as hot as he does. Like he's a good looking young man. I think he's going to probably, you could look at the lineup that we played this past weekend. It's probably going to be exactly the same. I don't think there will be any new wrinkle. Just simply because if it works, don't try and tinker with it.
And in all seriousness, like, watch out for Paul Rothrock. He will score on you at Starfire.
That's his favorite thing to do.
He was good the first half of the last matchup. And I would say, like, no one reaches the levels of shithousery that Nuhu does, but like Paul's definitely on the path.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's been the biggest storyline on our show this year.
Yeah, we love shithousery. We love a little random, and it'll get like that. Starfire, the crowd. I mean, I think the best Starfire moment, if we can go back to that for a second, was Marcus Hanneman, the former Sounders goalkeeper, chugging a beer after winning an Open Cup game from a dude in like right behind the goal. So like that type of energy.
That's beautiful.
He would have done that anyways.
If nothing else, I would say we're a pro chaos podcast more than anything else, even pro LAFC.
And a pro good looking soccer players podcast.
That's true.
I mean, we enjoy good looking soccer players.
It's just as frustrating to hear about the good looks as it is to hear about the form of the team for us. Like we pride ourselves on that just as much as anything else. I feel like the transfers we look for, that's a criteria for us. We need good looking guys on the team.
Yeah, we don't go to StatsBomb. We go straight to Google Images.
Yeah, that's where front office is looking.
I'm at the Instagram swiping, favorite, saving those images for later, so I can make sure that we match up 1-to-1. That's we're right there with you.
That's important. Yeah, you mentioned the form that you guys are in. I remember, I think the last time we played, we were talking about how this was maybe the best form we've seen Seattle in, at least this season, and certainly in a little while. We did win that match, but then didn't seem to slow you down at all. And now I feel like we're saying it again. This is probably the best form you've been in that we've faced you in a while. Again, I
think Jordan Morris coming into his own is a big deal.
This is the best he's looked in a while. At least that we've been lucky enough to see him like not at his best for a good chunk of games. I feel like.
I would argue it's the best he's ever been in his entire career.
He's out of his mind right now. Him and Rusnak both are on. It's definitely been a stark turnaround from the beginning of the season where we went through a lot of games and recorded a lot of podcasts where this offense was just tough to watch, frankly. Like we had like a running joke about like, will the Seattle Sounders score multiple MLS goals in this game? Like probably not. And if they did, it was like, oh my God, hooray. Like, I can't believe it. And then usually they would not. And there was dog days for sure. But the last 2 or so months, they've turned it around quite a bit. They're scoring a lot of goals. And really, I think the things to watch out for are Rusnak has really excellent delivery into the box. And he can do it. He can range out and do it from really far out wide. And he can put in service on a dime, and he's also a very, very good set piece taker. Like his free kicks into the box particularly have just been dead eye through this whole stretch, and his corner kicks are elite in MLS right now. So he's been a big driver of it. And then kind of the crazy thing that happened was, Seattle still has Raul Ruidiaz, who's a club legend and, the club's all-time leading goal scorer. He's coming off the bench right now because he was not effective earlier in the season. He is not scoring goals at the rate that we've been accustomed to seeing from him. And Schmetzer, to his credit, made the change of starting Jordan Morris as the full-time number 9. And as soon as he made that change, and it was Rusnak and Morris playing off each other as like a 1-2 duo with Rusnak as the 10 and Morris up top, the offense really took off. And like you mentioned earlier, this is all without De La Vega's been hurt the whole year. And he was supposed to be the signing that elevated this offense from what it was last year. And we really still, to this day, at this point in the season, have not really gotten any sort of sustained look at what he looks like. That like he's just coming back from like his 3rd or 4th injury just now. So I think what we're trying to hope for down the stretch and into the playoffs is that he gets healthy and actually starts playing. And then I'm curious to see what this team's ceiling could be offensively, because we really haven't seen it with De La Vega in there. And the Morris Rusnak duo has been great for a couple months now. So it's definitely like it's been a tough season at times, but the arrow has been pointing up lately. And there's kind of this like backhanded reason for hope that maybe a run down the stretch and in the playoffs is in the cards here if De La Vega can actually get fit and contribute.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect potential game for him to get a super sub moment, break in, cause a little chaos. He's looked good. He had a insane curved goal waved off for it was an offside call, but fans will argue that till they turn blue in the face. But
cool goals should count. That's just,
exactly cool goals.
We do have a rule.
Count. I like that.
We do have a rule on our show that Vince coined that if it's cool, it should count.
Yeah,
this was like a gold standard for that rule, because it was an incredible goal and it didn't count. But it's still like, whenever we watch him play, you see even in this Minnesota game this weekend, he had this pass that sprung Jordan Morris on a breakaway. That was, is a perfect ball. Yeah. So you see it in flashes, and we're like, I don't know how much of a role he's going to play in this game. I don't know if Schmetz is going to want to put him out there on this Starfire turf. But that's more forward looking. That's something that we're kind of hoping we see happen.
I'm curious, because I'm old enough to remember that the Sounders are able to make a run out of nothing at any point in the season. It doesn't matter where they are in the standings. And I think you look at the West and you say, like, the West is pretty soft. Like, other than LAFC, I still am not quite sure about RSL. And they made some good incomings, but they also sent out some very good players. And if Chicho doesn't play, it seems like it doesn't matter. The Galaxy, clearly Seattle knows how to play the Galaxy. They can go forward, but other than that, Seattle knows how to pants them in any kind of big game. So is this the most important game of your season, or is there is it overstating it, because Seattle can always make a run and could do something, as you said, in the playoffs?
No, I don't think it's overstating it, because Seattle needs the psychological weight off their mind that they can't beat this LAFC team. 7-0-2 over the last 9 is not just unacceptable, it's psychologically damaging. Like, when another team has your number to that extent and you just can't seem to beat them, and especially for me, at least, it's less about the results these last couple games and more just Seattle didn't look competitive. They got played off the field at home and didn't make adjustments that changed the result from the first game to the second game. And really, dating back a long time now, just has not been able to get results against this team. And for Seattle, I think, to gain the confidence and the psychological just relief, they need to beat this team and they need to win this game. And also I think there's just so much riding on the principle of, like I said, beating LAFC when they're already down. They've just lost Leagues Cup, to knock them out of Open Cup 3 days later. On top of that, there is no better way to cure this one-sided feeling of a team that you can't get the better of than eliminating them from the Open Cup right here. So to answer your question, I think this is the most important game of Seattle's season, not even necessarily because of the Open Cup final on the line, although that is a big factor, but because they need to beat LAFC to have confidence that they can do it in the playoffs. If they get played off the park at Starfire again, what reason is there to think that if there's a playoff matchup, it'll go any different? None. So.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. It's make or break, not only for the Open Cup, which I think, funny enough, there's our general manager was hanging his hat on about, we have a competitive team that can win trophies. Look at this. We're in the Leagues Cup, whatever round of whatever. We're in the semifinal for Open Cup, and we're still in a playoff spot. My man hung his hat on some pretty shaky ground. So from the top down on this club, it's a really, really big match that means a lot more, in my opinion, to the Sounders than it does to LAFC, even though I understand getting your ass beat by Columbus for the 15th time in a final or in an important game sucks. And you're going to want to put the whomping on someone else. I just don't think it means as much to LAFC respectfully as it does to the Sounders, where like legitimately I would say this is their best opportunity to actually bring home some silverware this season.
I got a question for you guys real quick.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, do you think Bouanga is going to start this game?
Yeah.
I think so.
The man is, I don't even think he's a man. He's a machine. You watch him in games, and the fact that he continues to like run at full pace, like no matter what. I mean, I remember, so when he first came to the club, it was like he always had a translator. I think he still does use a translator mostly, but his English, he understands. I mean, he can actually speak pretty good English. It's just, you know, these guys, when they're doing interviews, they don't want to be misquoted, so they prefer to use a translator. But I remember there was a spell where he like didn't score in like 4 games, which to normal players doesn't seem like a big deal, but we're talking about Denny Bouanga. And I was like, so what goes through your mind? Like, do you get mad? And he kind of like smirked and like kind of laughed. And then he gave a long answer. And while the woman was translating, he was like, I get mad. And I was like, I fucking love that. Like the guy wants to score goals. And I think legitimately, I know he really likes winning games, but also secretly he's like, if I didn't score and we win, did we play? Did we win?
He's
a killer
right now.
Yeah.
He's getting stifled. This last match was Drew's first start, so I think my guess is if I was Denny Bouanga, I'd be like, great, he's going to draw some defenders away. Drew got his first goal. Bouanga
Giroud scoring
got
maybe
blanked.
powers Bouanga. Yeah, Bouanga had a bad game too. I mean, he made some poor decisions. Obviously,
He hasn't quite been himself the last few games.
well, he's a 1v1 monster, right? But
Yeah.
Columbus has his number and understands how to get the numbers over there. And when
Right.
he gets it in his head that he needs to beat somebody, he's going to keep going to the well. And I think he'll feel pretty confident about his ability to score against Seattle, but I don't even think it matters. I don't think he honestly knows what team he's playing against. Again, he just sees, he's like, goal, I put ball in goal, and then I get to flip.
Yeah, this is a guy who played for his national team in Gabon and then found a way to make it to an LAFC match like 12 hours later. Like it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
He's a
He's just like, it's a soccer game. Why would I not play?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that was pretty early in his tenure with us, so we were kind of all surprised by that and kind of like learned the language of Denny Bouanga through that. But sorry, what were you going to say?
I mean, it's funny, like going into the playoff game last year, you know, obviously the game plan and like everything leading up to the game is all about how do you stop Denny Bouanga. And I actually thought Seattle did such a great job for most of that game in keeping him at bay. Knew who was like playing the game of his life, trying to keep this guy contained. And it was actually going like as well as you could hope against a player like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just that one moment where he gets out on the break. And when I swear, man, like when he's running in the open field, that's the most terrifying sight in the league. Like when he's running at you, it's just like, I don't really know what you do about it.
He's not slower with the ball, which is it.
Exactly. It's the same speed. It's the same speed. And like all he needs is that one moment. And last year it made the difference in the playoff game, you know? So, I'd never go into a game against that guy and feel good about it at all. And so I was hoping maybe, but like also we were joking about this when LAFC was in Champions League last year. Like,
we have a term called like the CCL hangover.
Yeah, and like they like it felt like LAFC rotated way less than your average MLS team in Champions League. And Bouanga's just out there. It doesn't matter like if the game is 2 or 3 days later, he's still out there playing the full 90. Does this guy get tired? Like how is we were legitimately like you can just play him every game and it doesn't matter.
The rest of the team does.
Yeah. The rest of the team definitely does. And I legitimately think it's more detrimental to LAFC to have Bouanga there and not put him in the game. I would fear for Steve Cherundolo's life if he was like, so you're just going to sit next to me and I'll get you in when we can.
We'll be able to hear everything, so we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Are the seats? Is it just normal bench seats, or like can players sit behind the coach? Because I feel like if he's behind Steve, he'll be able to burn a hole in the back of his head.
It's bench seats.
Think of like you're a little league team, you know, kind of style. Like it's literally that, and then it's like maybe 3 feet, and then you have the walkway metal bleachers, but people are in your ear chirping all game long, and not only to like the opposing team. well, the last game I was at, I think it was tied at half or something, whatever. Dude next to me starts chirping at Brian Schmetzer, and I got to lean over to him and be like, "Hey, buddy, you're not down there coaching. You need to zip it." So it's a electric atmosphere. It was great.
We were really
I'm
hoping
interested to see. What's that?
We were hoping to see Giroud.
The visual of Giroud playing at Starfire, the all-time leading goal scorer of the French national team, like at this
in Renton, Washington.
Tukwila, but yeah.
Tukwila, yeah, sorry.
But I don't think he's going to play. But
he doesn't start. But Steve did come out after the game and said he doesn't think it's very bad. So I think he definitely goes. And he said that, and obviously he did play on turf when we played you guys the last time. Like, he's not really afraid of turf. It's not like a Chiellini situation where Giorgio's like, look, my career could be over. You know, Giroud is in a different class in terms of his fitness. I do think that Kai Kamara starts. I think he gives them a better chance with his mobility, depending on how injured Giroud is. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Olivier get in there. Bit. Yeah, depending on.
Can we talk about Kai Kamara for a second?
Sure.
That dude is 800 years old and is still like insanely talented. We were talking about like we signed Danny Musovski.
Former LAFC.
You're
legend.
No?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Legend.
I think he's okay. I don't know what you guys think about him, but I've said this. I'm not normally like this hot takey with players, but that dude frustrates me to watch play soccer. That dude like pisses me off to watch play. And maybe it's just the mental state he's in. I would hate being a backup 9. That would kill me mentally. But to see him come in and just like do. And then I'm seeing Kai Kamara. I'm ready for that dude to score a bike. That dude is he's I can't just. You continue.
Well, Musovski was actually productive for LAFC, was he not? Like,
yeah, well,
a little.
He's a confidence player. So I think to your point, like when he shows up and he's like, "Wait, I'm not the starting 9." He's gone. You've lost him.
He's checked out.
Danny is a good finisher, but that's about it. So like if he's not getting chances, and then obviously he's checked out too, he's not of much use to you. But yeah, Kai though, you got it. It's not. It's obviously that, right? It's his ability. I mean, he could still jump out of the building at, 87 or however old he is. But
it helps that he 94. Has wings.
The mentality, like he literally shows up, and I guarantee they told him, they're like, Giroud's coming, so just so you know, like you're a stopgap. And the guy couldn't be happier. He clearly needed that goal, right? He wanted to go ahead of Landon in the scoring charts. Go consecutive games, he gets it, and then it's like, no. I still got something, guys. Like, and he's a joy to be around. Like, there's something special about a player like that. And I think the converse is a Danny Musovski who, gets sour about kind of things, and that's a bummer because I do like Danny. I think he's a good story, but just kind of a bummer.
I do remember he went on a bit of a hot streak at RSL, and I remember being like, "Wait, where was this? What's going on here?"
Yeah, and then they bought Chicho.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Wait, what the?" Like,
there was a weird period. Maybe was it last season or the beginning of this season? There was a weird period where we watched like 4 other teams with, I think it was last season, with like 3 or 4 other teams with former LAFC duos scoring at will when we couldn't buy a goal, and it was a very strange period of time for us as fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Musovski Chicho era there was when that was working. It was pretty tough.
Talk about a great buddy cop movie, Chicho and Musovski. What incredible!
He would be a good movie cop. That should be his next career is acting. I think he could totally hit that. He's got the like good facial. He's built for it. I think.
He needs the mustache like you, and then he's just a dead ringer.
There it is.
I'll let him know. I'll slide him that contract. I'll be like, buddy, hear me out.
I mean,
all right.
You said it, Starfire. You should be able to hear you.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be like, the 9 it's not for
let him know on Wednesday.
Yeah. Danny.
Going back to Bouanga real quick, I think it'll be really particularly interesting for him with a narrow pitch. So you're talking about figuring out a way to beat him. That might have been how you figured it out.
Well, sorry, not to like totally piggyback off you, Darren, but like, yeah, for Bouanga and both your best player right now, Jordan Morris, they thrive on space and behind. So like, who has the advantage on this field?
I think Seattle does just because they have played on it a lot and they know how it plays. That's a huge advantage, in my opinion. I don't know if Seattle will make anything of that advantage, but I think you can go back and look at the results that Seattle has had in this tournament historically, like playing at this venue. They're very, very hard to beat at this venue, like that. Like, and it doesn't really, like, the historical trends of it. It doesn't seem to matter who they play. There have been some like really tough, hard fought, close games, for sure, like competitive games, but like Seattle never gets boat raced at Starfire just because most of the visiting teams, they don't have like any base of knowledge for how to game plan for it. And then even as good as you could ever game plan for it, like once you're out there in these crazy dimensions with how different it plays than a normal MLS stadium, it's very hard to adapt to and adjust to. So I would think that that's what we're hoping, is that Seattle has an advantage from that. But like, I don't know, just listening to you talk about it right there, like honestly, Denny Bwanga in like even more enclosed space almost sounds a little scarier than it would be on a bigger field.
I don't know. The way he usually succeeds is he goes to the box at a certain angle, which he now no longer has. And then a little more often than I would like, to the point where it seems pretty predictable, he'll put that last touch. He'll go one more like touch toward the goal line than you think is possible. And you're like, he's not going to go that way. There's no angle there. And then he does, and he finds an angle and he scores. And I think defenders in the last, I don't know, handful of matches have started to get a little bit wiser to that. But also I feel like it helps to have some space on the side if you're going to try to pull that off as often as he does. So I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like the sound of it.
I think also,
it doesn't sound great to be playing in what sounds like an indoor field. Like we're playing indoor soccer.
It really
sounds
is like comparable to that. Yeah.
I think
we're playing sevens. Like what's going on?
Yeah, basically we should. That would be so sick. 7-on-7
really
Open Cup. That might be the
semifinals and finals should be sevens.
I think you just solved the MLS's problem with Open Cup. Is like, oh, it's too much, too many injuries. 7v7 would be so sick.
I mean, Seattle played with 7 there once. It was just not intentional.
Yeah, you said that.
It just wasn't ideal. But
Seattle invented the 7v7 again.
That's
you
true.
know, the meme, it
The
continues.
birthplace of the 7-man match.
Yeah, I think having a poacher though, like Kai Kamara, someone like Kai Kamara can be a poacher for sure.
Yeah.
And that could play really well on a Starfire type, because I feel like a lot of the goals on Starfire tend to be like a Paul Rothrock poacher goal or something like that, where it's just bouncing around in the box and you're just finding a way. So I don't know who I'm excited. Neither of us are ready to say that Seattle will win this match, but I think
I would think it's fair to say both sides of the podcast are not excited for this game. In terms of optimism, we're excited for the game, but the optimism of like our team coming out on top, we both have legitimate reasons to say, I don't really want to play this game right now.
We're so beaten down by these last 9 LAFC results. But I mean, the other thing I was going to say is that like Starfire games do get a little track meaty. Like it can be a lot of back and forth, up and down, transition play, which I mean, that's what LAFC excels at. So like depending on how they adjust to the dimensions and the speed of play, that is something that like LAFC might be better equipped to handle a game state like that than most teams who are coming to Starfire.
Fair.
I hope we can pull it off. I will say you mentioned earlier about how needing to get the monkey off your back. I found myself sympathizing with you guys, even though we're on the other end of that situation. But we're in the same situation. Like we're still hungover from 15 hours ago, being in the exact same situation with Columbus. We can't seem to fucking beat them, and whether it's a league match or a finals match, I would really like the next time we play them to not be in another finals. Maybe like some baby steps trying to beat them, but we cannot figure it out. So I think when you were saying that this, like Seattle needs it more, I think maybe a win doesn't quite mean as much to LAFC as it might to Seattle, but a loss means at least as much to LAFC as a loss would to Seattle. Is that a fair way to put it, Vince? What do you think? I think losing Leagues Cup finals and then 3 days later losing US Open Cup semifinals to a team that we've had your number for a bit. That feels like a nice little rock bottom for the season for us, for sure.
That's what we were talking
I would
about.
hope that's rock bottom.
Yeah,
I was saying, I think like another thing, at least that, we're hoping plays in Seattle's favor is that I do think the pressure is on LAFC in this game because of exactly what you said, like getting eliminated from 2 different tournaments 3 or 4 days apart. Like that is not good for the vibes and the morale, so when you're going into a game and you feel like the pressure isn't on you as much, you can play a little freer. You don't have that kind of weight of expectation on your back. So, and especially with how one-sided this dynamic has been lately, I'm hoping Seattle leans into that a little bit and just kind of takes on the same mentality they took on in that 2019 Western Conference Championship, where LAFC could not have been more favored. And I think Seattle was able to kind of play on a similar thing in that game, which is that, no one expects us to win this game. If we lose, no one's going to really bat an eye. We can just go out there and like have fun, play our game, and like let the chips fall. And I think they use that to great effect in that game. I'm hoping they kind of lean into that again in this game, because I think the whole fan base out here is probably expecting Seattle to lose. And I think I'm hoping they can use that to their advantage in a way.
It's absolutely like criminal and cruel to think, but this is the way football goes sometimes, is like LAFC really is kind of in a no-win situation. It's like, hey, if you won, you got to another final. Well, it doesn't matter unless you win it. And to Darren's point, if you lose, the knives will be even more will be out. But I want to say you guys have been awesome. Like we normally go on with people for about 15 minutes and we're almost at like 3/4 an hour here.
You've been very generous with your time.
Could you tell everybody, because you guys are very fun, and I do think that even if you're an LAFC fan, you should be listening to Lobbing Scorchers.
Yeah.
We can you tell everybody where to find you guys?
We'll take that cosign.
We've got a couple of LAFC fans in our YouTube comments who like this last show we recorded, we clowned on LAFC a lot, but it's an equal opportunity clown
show over here.
Exactly.
We clown on the Sounders too.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll set up a little freeway.
There we
Podcast
go.
freeway.
I5, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, so we're hosted on Sounder at Heart right now, which is the most popular Sounders fan blog that used to be a part of SB Nation, but about a year ago went independent, and they've created a podcast network for local podcasts out here. So we're on that with them. Their podcast is called Nos Audietas, which is great. And then there's also the Cooler Guild, which covers Seattle Reign. So we're a part of that network. And if you go to sounderatheart.com/LS, that's like where you can find all of our shows. And then also you can find us on like all the normal
YouTube,
platforms.
Spotify, Instagram,
and then, the big thing
whatever.
that we're pushing right now, though, is the YouTube, because we just started that like a month or two ago, and we've already gotten some pretty decent little traction, and we're trying to
get happy foot, sad foot numbers.
We're trying to get those numbers.
Come on.
So if anyone watching this like wants to sub to our YouTube, that's probably the best thing you could do for us right now.
Yeah. Just search
All right.
Lobbing Scorchers. You'll find us.
Yeah, go like their stuff, subscribe to their stuff. Even if you're like, what am I going to do listening to Sounders?
Well, we cover all of MLS too.
Cover other stuff too, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So
we cover MLS and
do it.
U.S. men's and
This is
women's
great.
national team.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Put it in your rotation. Just
We
do
lob
it.
all sorts of Scorchers. Don't you worry. We will warn you though. There is a little bit of pro Galaxy propaganda. We do love Joey Paintsill just a little bit. He is one of our.
We're
faves.
Joey Paints.
Okay, we're going over time here.
Well,
We got to
see
cut
you later.
Picking up.
Well, we're good. We can have selective hearing.
Yeah. You could just fast forward through that part. You're good.
Yeah, well, fast forward. Yeah, if you could start offering like LAFC fan warnings, I think your viewers
Yeah,
trigger warning.
content
among
warning.
our
Yeah,
fan
we can
base.
do that. Yeah.
Content warnings. That sounds great. You've done the impossible, which is pick us, at least these two guys, back up after a really horrifying loss to get excited about this next match. I did not imagine that we would be excited for a Wednesday match this week against Seattle, who we've played a lot in the U.S. Open Cup, which is like, I don't know whether we're supposed to care about this, but now I can't wait for this match. This is going to be great, and I hope we can do this again.
Yeah.
Dare I say, excited to play Seattle another time so we can hang out again.
No, no.
Yeah.
We'll talk about a different game.
You've taken me too far.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We'll probably see you in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I was
you
just
don't
gonna
have to
say.
worry
Oh,
too
boy.
much. We'll be
see you
here
again for
We'll be-
game 162 or whatever. it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Well,
shout out to our new rivals, Happy Foot,
Yes.
Sad Foot. This is a great collaboration we're starting here. Maybe are we Lobbing Feet? New name here. Collab
That's good,
name,
yeah.
Lobbing Feet.
Let's try it.
Happy
I love it.
Scorchers, sad Scorchers. Lobbing feet works better than the other way around.
Yeah, it's a
Cool. You guys take it.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you both for having us. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for being
Thanks,
here.
guys.
When we come back, what are we doing next? We're making some bets?
Yeah.
All right.